Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Tiffany Toombs, and we're going to talk about life, specifically defining happiness on your own terms and doing more of the things you love. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. Today's focus is on health. And let's start with a quote. To enjoy good health, to bring true happiness to one's family, to bring peace to all, one must first discipline and control one's own mind. If a man can control his own mind, he can find the way to enlightenment, and all wisdom and virtue will naturally come to him. We chat about health today with our guest. The reality is we have to be intentional for our fitness and nutrition. And getting fitness done first thing in the morning helps to achieve success. In addition, having everything ready to go the night before removes the barriers that prevent us from success. That means your gym clothes are laid out, your water bottle is ready to go, you've got your shoes by the door, you know what you're going, and you know what exercises you're doing. And maybe you have a fitness coach or a trainer who keeps you moving and keeps you on schedule and takes a lot of that load off of you so you don't have to think about it. Doing your exercise in the morning starts your day off strong. And it also helps to overcome the issueness of tiredness that occurs later in the day and may prevent you from getting to the gym. However, fitness is only 20% of the game. Nutrition is the 80% that drives good health and good weight. Those decisions are made in the supermarket when you put the item in the cart. You can't eat chips at home that never made it out of the store. As we begin the new year, I know many of you are focused on nutrition and fitness goals. Do everything you can to make the goals easy to hit. Remove the barriers. We're going to dig into some of the specifics today with our guest. Tiffany Toombs is a mindset coach who specializes in helping people rewire their brains to overcome self-sabotage and limiting beliefs, allowing them to experience success in every area of life. She is a master practitioner and trainer in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and matrix therapies. Tiffany worked in the health and fitness industry for 18 years, while exclusively working as a coach for the last 5 years. She combines her science background and knowledge of the body and mind with her spiritual interests and training to help others where years of therapist visits couldn't, and leading people to identify the potential that lies within us all. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Richer Soul, Tiffany. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to talk.
As am I. So, we always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
It's a great question. I don't actually remember ever learning anything about money in school. There's a lot of lessons that came from my family, though. My family were definitely spenders. When they were growing up, their families had very little. And I often heard stories about my dad having to go to the grocery store with a list of items that were needed and only $10. And he would be at the till having to remove things from the pile to see how he could get the most out of that $10 from the list. They kind of grew up in a place of scarcity and then moved into a place of being spenders. So we didn't necessarily always have brand name clothes, but we definitely didn't go without. And we never were really taught how to save money. I think the other lesson that stood out very clearly for me was my dad always had a friend who always encouraged my dad to start his own business. I remember hearing them talking on Friday and Saturday evenings over a couple beers, and my dad's friend would be encouraging him to start his own business because he could make more money, and my dad always saying no. And I remember distinctly when I was in grade 6, there was like a car show in the town that I grew up in, and the town's population like doubled for that day because people would come from all over the place to see these classic cars. And it was going to be really hot the next day. And so I was like, I need to set up like a lemonade stand. And that was probably like the first sign that I was going to be an entrepreneur when I grew up. And my parents just very quickly shutting it down. Like, no, do you know how much money you're going to have to spend to buy the lemonade and buy the cups and buy everything that you need? And I was like, yeah, but I can make it all back tomorrow pretty quickly and pay you back. And that was just kind of kiboshed. So yeah, I guess the lessons were that I got around money were get the safe job and spend.
And that's funny that they were spend, coming from having that savings mentality in a sense when they were growing up, or I guess the scarcity type of mentality.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And then now, obviously, being an adult, there's been times where my mom's told us, when you guys were growing up, there was times that we had to choose between paying for dinner and paying the electricity bill, or we would have to pay the electricity bill this month and skip water, and then next month we would pay water and skip electricity. And I don't ever remember us ever knowing about that. We just always saw that if there was things that we wanted to do, we lived in a really nice house. My parents always had fairly nice vehicles. Yeah, so we never saw that side of the struggle, I guess, until we got older.
There's a lot of people who live their life like that. Looks like everything is wonderful, but behind the scenes, the numbers aren't there matching up with the lifestyle that they're living, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I see that a lot with the clients that I work with as well.
I am sure you do. So what I wanted to start with were the two words that everyone hates. And I noticed on your website, you use different words because I always say diet and exercise, and everybody hates those words. But you say fitness and nutrition. Mm-hmm. You've spent a lot of time in the industry, and I just like to hear from you because everyone's always looking for the magic bullet when it comes to those words. They spend billions of dollars looking for that solution, but it's not there. You have to do the work.
You do have to do the work. And I think the other message that commonly gets missed is that it doesn't have to be as complicated as people make it out to be. So firstly, there is no one size fits all. And I've had plenty of arguments with nutritionists and personal trainers who makes it easier for their business model to hand out cookie cutter programs, except that we're all firstly designed differently with the mixture of our genetic heritages and our ancestors, where we come from. The DNA of our tribes all come from different places. And there's been a lot of studies that have shown that depending on where the initial ancestral tribe lived will depend on what types of food are right for them. So, for example, we know that in Asian culture, there's a lot of rice. Well, Asians actually have a larger pancreas so that they can handle more rice. Whereas if you were living more inland, then you can handle more grains, as opposed to if you were living on a lake or an ocean where there was a lot more seafood. So there isn't really a one size fits all. And one thing I do with my clients when we work together is I get them to do a food journal, and they're kind of pleasantly surprised when I say to them, I don't actually care what you're eating. Because normally when you get given a food journal, you're like, okay, for this 2 weeks, I'm going to be on my best behavior so that they don't see me eating McDonald's and whatnot every day. And to my clients, I just say, I want you to just eat normal, and I don't actually care what you're eating. What I care about is what your body is telling you afterwards, because our body ultimately will tell us if food agrees with us or not. Yesterday, my partner and I were actually on the road driving out to Kentucky. So we did eat fast food, which we don't normally do. And this morning I woke up not feeling great. It took me a little while to get going in the morning. I had that, I haven't had a drop of alcohol in a while, but I had that almost like a hangover type feeling as my brain started working this morning. And I said to him, this was the fast food. I'm a little bit congested and have a little bit of this lump in my throat, cough kind of thing going on. And I know that's because I ate the food that I ate yesterday. So our bodies are always communicating with us about what works well for us individually. The problem is that I think so many people forget that they're the expert in themselves and they look to somebody else to tell them what to do. So it's almost like we look for a parent in a personal trainer or in a nutritionist or the latest health fad or diet fad. And those things may work well for that person, but they have different DNA and a different ancestral makeup than we do. And so when we start listening to our bodies, that's when our fitness and nutrition becomes its best, I think, because we do the things that we love. I personally love going to the gym and lifting really heavy weights. Whenever my mom was looking for that magic potion or pill that would make her lose all the weight, I said, just let me put together a program for you. And she's like, no, I don't want to be in the gym squatting and deadlifting 100 pounds like you do. And I was like, that's not what I'm going to give you, because that doesn't work for you. So if it's yoga, if it's walking the dog, whatever it is, just move your body, right? If you're moving your body, then you're going to be on that journey to being healthier. If you know that every time that you eat from McDonald's, you get super bloated the next day, well, stop eating McDonald's. I think we like to complicate things sometimes, make them harder than they need to be.
And I think we do. I think the biggest problem, though, is people are probably not listening to their bodies, and they may not be making the connection between what they're eating and how they're feeling, especially if they've been doing it for a long time, because they lose that signaling, so to speak. They don't even know what it means to wake up and feel great in the morning.
Yeah, I agree with you. I did the food journal exercise actually with a girls' football team in Australia, and I had them do it for 2 weeks, and I came back and a bunch of them were saying, well, I feel normal after I eat 3 Big Macs from McDonald's. And I was like, what is normal for you? What does normal mean? Because there is no such thing as normal. And they were like, well, after you eat lunch, it's normal to feel tired. And I was like, no, it's not. It's not normal to be gassy. It's not normal to be bloated or tired. After you eat food, you should be feeling energized and lighter and ready to move. The other part of it is if you're eating food that comes in a box or a can that could survive an atomic bomb, also probably not so good to be putting inside your body. If it doesn't rot, I don't know that you should be eating it. Well, I do know absolutely that you should not be eating it. If it doesn't rot, you should not be putting it anywhere near your body.
And that's very true. And I think that's the thing. People just don't even know what normal is. And until you make a change and you start seeing the results, you're not going to know that your normal isn't really your best, is what it comes down to. And I do find, and lifting heavy weights is probably one of the best things I think people can do. And I do it. I don't love it. I don't enjoy doing it. But at the end of the day, that's what's going to give me the life I want. So I do it because of that, because of the results, not because I enjoy the process.
Yeah. A journalist interviewed me for an article that she was writing on New Year's resolutions the other day. And I said, I like to apply the 80-20 rule to everything that I do. Where can I put in 20% effort and get 80% results? Whether that's my business, my relationships, my health, how can I put in 20% effort or time and get 80% results? And the thing when it comes to fitness is, it's funny, is that there's this notion that if you want to lose fat or you want to lose weight, you need to run. And you need to run for an hour a day or half an hour every day or whatever it is that people believe. And when having been in the health and fitness industry for so long, I actually know that that's not true. And so when my boyfriend and I started dating, he was like, oh, like I need to lose some weight. I hate running. I don't want to go to the gym and sit on the bike for like an hour. And I was like, well, then don't. And he was like, well, that's the only way to lose weight. And I actually said to him, if you lift weights, that's the 80-20 rule, right? Lifting weights is putting in 20% effort and getting 80% return. Going for a run to lose weight is putting in 80% effort to get a 20% return, because what most people don't realize is that losing weight is an equation. If you are burning more calories than you're taking in, then you will lose weight and you'll be burning fat. Now, if you go for a run, your metabolism stays elevated for 24 hours. If you lift weights, which creates micro tears in the muscles that you're working, your metabolism actually stays elevated for 72 hours. And then the more muscle that you put onto your body, the more efficient of a machine that you become, because muscle burns more calories at rest than fat does. And running doesn't actually put on muscle. Lifting weights does. So in terms of, I encourage people to do what they like to do because that's what they're most likely to stick with. But also, obviously, I encourage people to find something that's going to help them put weight onto their body or muscle onto their body, which typically is lifting weights of some sort of resistance training, so that their bodies do become more effective machines and they burn more calories at rest. And then they're, putting in 20% effort and getting 80% return.
And that's what I like. I love the 80-20 rule. And I talk about taking it, the second step is you can put in 40% effort and get 96% of the results too, depending on what you're looking for and what you want out of a particular area. And I think the other thing is people don't realize how little food we actually need to survive. I think we overeat dramatically.
Oh, definitely.
And we don't need all the meals that we have either. There's no reason to eat 3 meals a day. Nowadays, I'm down to 1.5. Some days I'll eat 2 meals, but you don't need to eat all these meals. You can go for long periods of time without food. Your body will get used to it, and it's designed to function that way.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to note that our brain processes the signals for thirst and hunger the same way. So people are severely dehydrated because they don't drink enough water, or they drink water in their coffee or their juice thinking that that is hydrating them, and it's not. And then they get this sensation and they read it as hunger when it's actually thirst. And so if you drink more water, you'll find that you're less hungry throughout the day.
And that's always good. And it's cheap and it's clean and it helps your body function.
Yeah, and you perform at a whole other level when you're properly hydrated.
That is correct. So you mentioned something about New Year's resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
Why do most people fail at them?
So most people fail at New Year's resolutions because they're focusing on the behavior. So I very much, with what I do in NLP and reprogramming the brain, work with the unconscious mind. And there's a couple reasons that I do that. Firstly, every behavior that we engage in, whether it's a good behavior, a bad behavior, empowers us, disempowers us, whatever, every behavior that we have is preceded by a belief. There's nothing that we do that is not preceded by a belief or an emotion. Everything that we do is emotion driven. So I always have a little giggle when people say to me, nope, my emotions don't control me. And I was like, well, it's the emotional part of your brain that makes every decision. You just back it up with logic and reasoning. So the faster you accept that, the further ahead you're going to be. Now, a lot of studies or textbooks in the 90s would talk about how we use 10% of our brain. More recently, out of Sydney, Australia, there's a researcher at the University of Sydney, Dr. Snyder, and he, based on some studies that he's done, he postulates that our conscious mind's capacity is really only 4% of our brain's capacity, where the unconscious mind is 96%. So every single day, the things that we're doing, 96% of the time, we don't know why we're doing it, or 96% of our life, we have no conscious control over. Now, when we make New Year's resolutions, we're typically relying on willpower and self-discipline to get us there. Willpower and self-discipline use the conscious mind, which is the least effective part of the brain. We're using that 4% and attempting to make that 4% control the 96%. The other reason is that a lot of people will set more than one resolution. So they'll set a resolution, for example, to get fitter or healthier, and they'll also set a resolution to make more money, for example. Those kind of tend to be the two most common that I come across. And our conscious mind can only focus on one thing at a time. So if we're focused on our health and fitness goals, whatever programming we have in our unconscious mind for money is what we'll revert back to. And then as soon as we're focused on our finance goals or our business goals, whatever is pre-programmed into our unconscious mind in health and fitness is what we'll revert back to. And then I don't know if you've heard of decision fatigue, but this just plays into it as well, is that we have a finite amount of willpower every single day. And with every decision that we make, we decrease the amount of willpower that we have. So I always relate it to having a full glass of water in the morning, and every decision that we make, we tip a little bit of water out. Now, at the workshops that I run, I ask people, how many times do you hit snooze in the morning? I had one woman at one of my seminars who told me that she hits snooze 10 times in the morning. Well, that's 10 decisions before she's even getting out of bed in the morning. And then she has to decide what to eat, what to wear, whether or not she's going to shower, what the kids are going to wear, what the kids are going to eat. Do I take a lunch? Do I buy lunch? What am I going to take for lunch? All these other things. And so most people, if they don't start with their New Year's resolution first thing in the day, so they don't go to the gym first thing in the day, then by the time they come home after a day full of making decisions, they sit down on the couch and now they're faced with the decision of watching Grey's Anatomy with a glass of red wine or going to the gym. Well, they have no willpower left, so they're going to revert back to that seeking immediate gratification and immediate pleasure and avoiding pain. And for most people who are unfit, the gym equals pain, and red wine and Grey's Anatomy is pleasure and instant gratification. So until we start addressing the belief systems, the behaviors are a lot harder to change.
That they are. And I try and remove as many decisions as I can from my life, just down to the way I wear my clothes. I have the clothes set up in such a way that I don't have to think about what I'm putting on in the morning. I grab a shirt, I grab the next suit in the line. I don't actually have to put that much decision making behind it. And I won't make decisions for my kids. I'm like, you figure out your lunch. I don't need to worry about it.
Yeah. And if you look at the most successful people in the world, they've done the same thing. When Barack Obama was in the White House, he had 10 of the exact same suit. Makes it pretty easy to decide what you're going to wear every day. And, people make jokes about Richard Branson or Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs, how their quote unquote uniform is the blue jeans and the white or black t-shirt. Well, if that's all you have in your closet, then it makes it pretty easy to figure out what you're going to wear during the day. I do my food prep on Sundays, so that takes it. Like I prep breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so then I don't have to even think about food during the week.
And it makes it a lot easier. You get rid of the decisions. And the reality is we don't even remember what we ate last week. We don't even remember what we wore. So it really doesn't matter. Your happiness and your fun comes from the rest of life that you're now able to live and enjoy because you're not making irrelevant decisions all day.
Yeah. And, there's this belief that, well, if I'm not wearing the right thing, then people are going to judge me. I could not tell you what my partner is wearing right now, even though I saw him like 10 minutes ago, never mind what he wore yesterday. And people, we walk around so worried that other people are going to judge us, and we forget that they're walking around more worried about what we're thinking about them than they are judging us.
And that's true. Everyone's thinking of themselves. They're not thinking about you. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So while we're on some of the science and talking about life and biology, one of the things that I'd like to dig into a little bit more with you is the concept of manifestation. And is there science and biology behind it? And how does that relate?
There definitely is. So a lot of people, I think probably because like yogis and the people into Eastern medicine and Eastern cultures started talking a lot more in this kind of new age wellness, mindfulness era about manifestation, that people think that it's very woo-woo, but it is actually very much based around science. So when people talk about speaking something out into the universe and then the universe or God or whoever it is delivering it to them, they're actually working with their unconscious mind. So in our unconscious mind, we have this filtering system that's called the reticular activating system. I'll just backtrack for a second and say that every second we have 2 million pieces of information that get stored in our unconscious mind. And of that 2 million, only 134 pieces makes it through to the conscious mind. So there's a lot of information that doesn't make it through and that goes into those dark recesses of our unconscious mind. Now, what determines what gets lost in the unconscious mind and what makes it through to our conscious awareness is this reticular activating system, or this RAS. It's also important to note that we don't actually communicate in pictures or in words, we communicate in pictures. So everything that you and I are saying today, Rocky, your listeners will get a picture of that in their head. Whatever picture that goes into the reticular activating system is what we program into it. So our reticular activating system is very much like the GPS that you have in your car and your phone. And so when people talk about being specific about their goals, when you're specific about your goals, you put a picture into your reticular activating system, or your RAS. And your RAS, like any good GPS or homing device, says, okay, what's the fastest way that I can get you here? A lot of people will say to me, for example, I want more money. Well, firstly, that's not very specific. So our brain can't actually get a picture of that. So oftentimes it'll revert back to whatever was previously programmed into the brain. The other part of it is that our unconscious mind has a little bit of a sense of humor. So if I tell you I want more money, and then I walk outside and I see a penny lying on the ground, well, I've just said more money. And technically now I have it. So my unconscious mind goes, well, we can tick that one off the list. What's next? So the language that we use when we're setting goals, and even when we're talking in everyday life, is really important, because everything that we say puts a picture into our reticular activating system. Now, a lot of people, when they set goals, they talk about what they don't want. I don't want a partner who cheats on me. I don't want to be overweight anymore. I don't want debt, or I want to get out of debt. Well, in either of those cases, you're putting a picture of a cheating partner, debt, being overweight into your unconscious mind, and that becomes the address that you've just directed your internal GPS to. So when we manifest, people who talk about being really good at manifesting, they're really good at talking specifically about what it is that they do want, and they're careful around their language around what they don't want. So that opens up the filters of the reticular activating system to go out and find what it is that you want, assuming that it's within your belief systems. If the goal that you're setting conflicts with a belief system, then there will be some issues there. So for example, if I set a goal to make $1 million, but I grew up with a belief system that money doesn't grow on trees, or it's hard to make money, I may find a whole bunch of $1 million business ideas, but they'll be hard. It'll be hard work to get there. Whereas if I believe that money flows freely and easily to me, then I will find clients, or I will find business opportunities that the money flows easily.
Absolutely. And you have to be clear on what you want. And part of it is literally telling the universe, this is what I want. This is where I'm going. And all of a sudden, opportunities start happening everywhere and things start opening up for you. I think the biggest problem most people have is that they aren't clear with what they want. And that's probably the hardest thing. Get clear on what you want and then start moving towards it. And once you do those 2 steps, everything else becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. And being aware of the everyday language that you have this time of year, coming into the new year. I always see all these memes on social media about, there's this one where it's like this girl sliding down the slide and she's not having a good time. Like she's like sideways and going way too fast and kind of screaming. And the caption is something like, me sliding into the new year. And it's funny. I get it. The self-deprecation, though, also your unconscious mind takes that on board and goes, okay, so you think I'm a train wreck. Well, that's what I'm going to deliver to you, because our unconscious mind doesn't understand the difference between fiction and reality, what's real and what's a joke, what's the truth and what's a lie. And so whatever we program into our unconscious mind, whatever we tell ourselves is what we believe to be true, and we're wired to win. So we'll make that happen. When I met my boyfriend, he used to talk a lot about how he had ADD. He'd get up in the morning, he would say a couple positive affirmations around how he was going to be focused and pay attention to detail for the day. And then he would jump on sales calls with people. And on every sales call, he would make a joke about having ADD or how he got easily distracted. And then about a month into our relationship, he was like, I don't really think that positive affirmations work. And I was like, well, of course they don't, because one time a day you're saying that you focus. And at least 5 times a day, you're talking about how you have zero attention span. Of course, your brain is going to go with the quantity. So I think people really need to realize like just how powerful the words that they use are and how much that creates our reality.
And that's very true. And that kind of segues into our next topic, which is happiness. And you state happiness starts with you. What do you mean by that? Because, I think a lot of people, happiness comes from having the fancy house or the new car or whatever it is that's displayed to them in the latest commercial. But that's not what you're talking about, is it?
No, not at all. I think the people who do play that role of keeping up with the Joneses, if you were to actually ask them how happy they are, most of them would rate themselves fairly low. I mean, mental health incidents are on the rise. There's more people who are taking antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication now than ever before. And yet, the economy is in one of the best conditions right now that it's been in a very long time. And we have more stuff, more physical, materialistic stuff available to us. The thing is that when happiness is an inside job, nobody else can make us happy. In the Jerry Maguire movie, Tom Cruise says to Renee Zellweger, "You complete me." And I think that was one of the most dangerous lines to ever come out of Hollywood, because then it set all these people out thinking that they have to find happiness or love or completion of themselves within somebody else. Except that if that's what we're seeking, we're never going to find it, because happiness is a choice. We're the only ones who can make that decision. I can have the fanciest car and the fanciest house and, the best dressed children and the best looking partner on the block, and yet I could still make the decision to be unhappy. I said before that our brains are programmed to win. And so if we are constantly telling ourselves that we will have happiness when we get something else, then our brain goes into a place of continually seeking more. But we can reprogram that part of our brain to be content with where we are. I've had clients who have told me that they're scared of doing a gratitude practice because they don't want to become complacent, because they're not at the levels that they want. So they feel like, well, if I express gratitude and happiness for what I have now, that means I'll stop seeking out the next level, right? I won't go for my next million, or I won't go, to that Tony Robbins or Richard Branson or Elon Musk level that I know I'm capable of if I start expressing gratitude for what I have now. One of my mentors, Marshall Silver, he talks about how the rich get richer. He's not talking at all about money, because the only way we'll ever be truly satisfied with what we have is to make the decision to start being satisfied with what we have. So the whole concept of a gratitude practice, which is one of those buzzwords in the mindfulness industry right now, is that it reprograms our brain to start looking for all the good things that are happening now, being aware that they're happening now so that we can create more of them. When we were talking about manifestation, what we focus on expands. So if I look at my life and all I see is all the good things happening around me, those good things are going to expand. If I look at my partner and I focus, he's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and neither am I. But if I focus on all of his good qualities and his good traits, then I'm just going to continue to see more good in him. Whereas if I focus on him snoring or, him leaving the toilet seat up, which a lot of people do in relationships, they focus on all the little annoyances, then those little annoyances are going to grow into bigger and bigger things. And so it's a choice that I make daily. I get up every day and I express gratitude for him. I express gratitude for everything that I have. And that sets up my day for more good things to happen. If I get up in the morning for whatever reason, get enough sleep, had bad dreams, whatever, I'm not feeling well, whatever it is, and I'm like, oh, it's raining outside, and I start my day with complaining, that puts a shade on the entire day where all that I see that day is everything that's going wrong.
And that's a choice we have to make. I mean, the reality is we live in one of the best times ever, and people have more now than anyone in past history. And even if you're just an average middle-class person, you still have more than most of the world.
Yeah, but if you turn on the radio or you turn on the TV or you read a newspaper, they'll convince you otherwise. I'm very actually selective around what I let into my environment. I don't watch the news. I don't read the newspaper. If there's something that serious going on, I'll find out about it. I'm careful about the friends that I have on my social media because I don't want negativity in my world. So our unconscious mind is actually most impressionable the first 20 minutes that we wake up. Well, what do most people do in the first 20 minutes of their day? They have a radio going off beside them telling them the news and the traffic situation. They flick on the TV to listen to the morning news. Well, that's just like feeding your brain with negativity first thing in the mornings. Your brain is a computer. If you put in crap, you're going to get out crap. And if you put in good stuff, you're going to get good stuff out. So, start being selective. Stop letting advertising companies and big corporates tell you what you need. I had somebody reach out to me on Facebook. I put up a video a couple weeks ago about how we're continually being sold things that we don't need, telling us that it'll give us happiness. And someone said to me, you don't really think that big corporates are selling us things that we don't need, do you? And I was like, of course they are. That's how they line their pockets. Of course they are. They're not interested in, genuinely making you happy. They're interested in making money. The bottom line of any business is to make money. And advertising 101 is to find your pain and say, oh, well, if you buy this new car, or you buy this new bra, or you buy this new house, or you buy this, then you'll be happy. Then you'll look better to other people. And so advertising very much plays on our fears and our pain points.
And that's the purpose of sales. I mean, sales is all about exploiting the pain point and making it hurt enough that you're willing to give up your hard-earned money for their solution. And more often than not, their solution is not a good solution. And I'm with you. We don't really watch TV at all. We've started to come back to watching a movie or something from time to time for entertainment, but we try and do it in such a way that we don't have commercials. I don't want to watch all of that stuff. I especially don't want my kids watching all of that. And we do stay away from most of the news and everything else. I just don't want to hear it. And as you said, if something's important, you'll hear about it. If not, it's like, I don't want to fill my head and my time with all this negativity. And that's literally the news mantra is, if it bleeds, it leads. So they have to keep you hooked and excited. And you can say no. And that's the smartest thing to do, is to turn all that stuff off.
Yeah.
And enjoy life.
Yeah. If you turn on the news, you would think that we live in one of the most dangerous times ever. I travel a lot. And every time that I travel somewhere, I have a family member or a friend or someone who regularly watches the news that'll tell me, oh, I heard that place is really dangerous. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, some of the safest times that I felt were walking in New York City by myself. But then I'll have family who have never been there who are like, oh, you're a woman. This is a dangerous time. Don't you know? Like, you should never. And I'm just like, no, I'm going to live my life and not be subjected to the negativity that other people put out there to sell a newspaper or to sell some advertisements on a radio spot or a TV spot.
Absolutely. My daughter lives in New York City, And she's 18 and we're cool with it. I never even worry about it. It's super safe.
Yeah, it's a great city. I love it.
It's a great city. She has great opportunity. I'm like, go have fun. Enjoy life. We'll be back to our show in a moment. I really don't like the level of advertising and negativity we have to deal with these days. That's why there's no ads on the Richer Soul website. It's clean. There's no distractions. I also don't want to use all the tricks to get you to sign up for coaching, because then I have to keep forcing you. I prefer to find people who are already motivated for change and just want a little help. That's the power of coaching, to break down barriers and help you achieve success faster. Whether it's me, Tiffany, or someone else, we all need help to propel us forward. I've worked with people of all ages, from teenagers on up to seniors. Small course corrections make a massive difference over time. Let's get back to our guest, Tiffany, and see how coaching and masterminds have helped her. So one of the things that I find that helps people dramatically, and yet we really don't talk about this much, is coaching and mastermind groups and those types of activities to help improve yourself. What has been your experience with coaching and mastermind groups?
So I am a coach, and I have always had a coach in some form. And more recently have been joining in on the mastermind group side of things, and have had nothing but success from all of the above. I think a lot of people, and when I started coaching more so on the lifestyle and business side of things and not as much in the health and fitness, people were like, well, why would somebody come and pay you for you to tell them what to do? And I think people miss the point of why we have coaches and why we have mastermind groups. And for me, it's that we are greater. All of our parts are greater when we come together, right? I could figure out how to build $1 million business on my own, or I could get somebody who has done it. And when you talk about having those like life hacks or those like magic potions, well, that's where it comes from. Talking to somebody who's done it, getting their insight, and then applying it to what you do. The whole purpose of having a coach is to stand on the shoulders of giants so that we can go to the next level faster than what we would alone. And in a mastermind group, it's about firstly having a group of like-minded people to support you, because we all know that you're the average of your environment. So it's important to be careful of who you surround yourself with. And not everyone outside of a mastermind is going to understand your goals, your purpose, why you're doing what you're doing. So if you can surround yourself with people who will just support you because they have the mindset that it's better to support people than it is to tear them down. And at the same time, their insight, their experience may give you an idea that will help you build your business faster. Like every time there's a group of us that get together every month, and we'll go for lunch and we'll talk, and I'll say, this is going on in my business and I'm not sure how to get around it. And they'll say, well, have you tried this? So for example, in my business, my coaching business, my target client is a female between the ages of 28 and 60 who's feeling stuck and wants more. And so a lot of my marketing campaigns on Facebook for my workshops and seminars were going out to just women. And I had a decent turnout. I still wasn't hitting the level that I knew I could reach. And somebody said to me, well, why don't you open it up to men as well? And I was like, well, men aren't my perfect client though. And they said, well, you're cutting off half the population. Just open it up to men. And I was like, well, my life's mission, and I've put it out on social media as well. My life's mission is to empower 1 million women to live their truth every day. And they were like, well, just see what happens. What could it hurt? So I was like, yeah, what could it hurt? My business exploded. opening opening my advertising up to men as well. And right now, 90% of my clients are actually men. And I was really confused about this for a long time, because I was like, what is, like, I said that I wanted to empower women, 1 million women. And then I realized that every man has at least one woman in their life. And so I can help men get in touch with their emotions, or I can help men understand the importance of vulnerability or overcome their past traumas. Then they'll naturally empower the women in their life. So I think that sometimes the purpose of a coach and a mastermind is to get us out of our own limited view so that we can see the horizon from a different point of view.
And that's a big and important thing, is to being able to see a situation from multiple different lenses, and also to have people call you out, hold you accountable, and to propel you forward. And both of those activities, coaches and masterminds, help to do that. And at the end of the day, if you can get somewhere faster and quicker and easier, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
And it's just odd that we have coaches all the time in sports for games, but in life, most people choose to go without somebody to help propel them faster.
Yeah. And I mean, then they'll look at people at the top, your Elon Musks, your Richard Bransons, your Tony Robbins. Well, they all have coaches. None of them got to those positions alone. They all had coaches and mentors that they leaned on and that they paid to help them get to that level. So if they needed that, like, we're no different to them.
And that's very true. One thing that you do that's kind of unique, and I think it's really cool, is that you actually coach kids and teens as well, correct?
I do, yeah. So I'm really passionate about helping people understand emotional intelligence and how to understand how our brains understand communication. And so one of my goals, I guess you could say, is to start working with more schools and educating kids on their emotions and how to deal with their emotions and how to communicate their needs and their boundaries from a young age, so that they don't have to go through all the stuff that I see my adult clients having had gone through, and then having to spend time and money after they've had the heartache and the pain to get through it. I obviously work on the therapeutic side of things, but I want to work on a preventative side of things as well. And that if I can empower these kids and these teens to have the confidence in themselves and to understand how to rewire their own brains, to let go of fear and to let go of self-doubt and self-worth issues and everything like that, then that's kind of my way of helping overcome the mental health issues that we're seeing in today's day and age.
And that's very important. Unfortunately, I don't think most schools don't even focus on this. And I mean, it's literally essentially what you need for life, is to be able to understand these things. And yet there are no classes on this in school, and schools rarely talk about it. If anything, they go the opposite direction and push the kids even further away from where they should be.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've been having some success, though, getting schools to change the way that they're looking at things.
I have. So I actually I have a free 60-minute talk that I do for schools, for church groups, for sporting teams, who, even for businesses, whoever wants to bring me in. And it talks about the base level, the most basic information that I feel like everyone should have around how their brain works, what their emotions mean, how to communicate effectively. And then if schools want to go further from there, which sometimes schools will, sometimes it'll be individual parents and teachers that want to, then we can talk about how I can help you on a larger scale. But I feel like the free talk that I do just removes that barrier of, we have budgets and whatnot, so that the schools can start to implement these tools that are ultimately going to empower kids to be their best in the future.
And that's important. I know we've been very focused with our kids, and we've actually made sure that they were aware of all these things, and we practice and we talk about them so that we can propel them forward faster, easier, quicker. So I think it's important that parents even consider getting coaching for their kids, because a lot of times the kids don't want to listen to the parents. And if you get someone else to help you out, they're more likely to listen to the other person. But at the same point, and it's true for all of coaching, the person being coached has to want it. Because if they don't want it and they're not willing, it doesn't matter how much you spend. You're just not going to get results.
Yeah, I agree. And so having that open mind is critical. I have clients all the time who are like, I'm going to make my partner, I'm going to make my mom come and see you. And I was like, well, you're just going to be wasting your money. So to be honest, I'm probably not even going to take your money, because I have like a 100% track record, and I'm not really willing to risk that because somebody's not ready to do the work yet.
And that's important. They have to be ready to do the work. You can't force somebody to make change. All you can do is change yourself in the way that you behave, in the way that you treat them, and in the way you do things.
Yeah.
So you have a new book that just recently came out. Can you share a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So my book is called Stop Being a Selfish Bitch, and it's a comprehensive guide to living your best life through radical self-love. So self-love is one of these other new buzzwords in the mindfulness and the wellness space. And I think that it's something that we've gotten completely wrong. So I see a lot of people using hashtag self-love, and it's like a bubble bath and a glass of red wine or therapy. And I'm like, that's not really what I think self-love is. And the other reason that I wrote it was anytime I post about self-love on social media, somebody will reach out to me and say, you really need to stop promoting narcissism. And then I also have, a segment of social media posts where I talk about this is what narcissism looks like, and this is how to deal with a narcissist if you should meet one. And people will say, you shouldn't, it's really not cool that you judge people and you shouldn't categorize people. And I'm like, that's interesting. So I have a belief that we all have a gift or a message that we're here to share with the world. And whatever our gift or message is, it is meant to change other people's life. It doesn't matter if we change somebody's life by making the best pie that there is, or if we do the best oil change, we're the best teacher, the best mother, father, we're the best coach, whatever. I believe that we each have a message that we're here to share. Through my journey, I've had periods of self-doubt and fear and everything else that everyone else faces come up, where I've had to ask myself, can I actually support myself with a coaching business? Can I actually make a living off of running my own business, coaching people, helping people overcome traumatic events from their past and whatnot? And I was journaling one day and I said to myself, I know that what I do changes people's lives. I've witnessed it firsthand. I wonder how many lives I would change if I just believed in myself for 365 days straight, like just 1 year, just decided to put the self-doubt and the fear on the shelf. If I found that it wasn't working and I needed to take them back down and bring them back into my life again, I could do that. But if I was just to put them on the shelf for a year, go all in on myself, love myself, believe in my message and believe in my gift, how many people's lives would I change? So this book actually started out as my own personal project. It's morphed into the book being the lessons that I've learned along the journey. So I've broken it into two parts. The first part of the book is all the obstacles, or a lot of the obstacles that you're going to face on the journey that's going to attempt to stop you from your best life and how to overcome them. So things like haters, family who aren't supportive, fear, money, all these other issues that are going to pop up for you. And then the second part is a step-by-step guide on here's the things that I recommend that you do that will make it easier for you to get into alignment with what it is that you need to do in this life and to help you walk that journey a lot easier and a lot faster.
And it's interesting that you bring that up. I think a lot of people think success is a straight line, and they look at successful people and they don't realize that behind all of that success is a lot of struggle. And we're all going to face it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And then it's a matter of how do we deal with the struggle and how do we overcome and how do we get through those obstacles?
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the hero's journey, but it's something I share a lot with my clients. And I tell them, like, struggle is always part of there's always going to be struggle. In fact, if you go to a personal development seminar or to a coach or any sort of program and they tell you, just do this and all your struggles will be gone, you should run in the opposite direction, because we can build ourselves up to be more resilient. We can build ourselves up to learn the lesson faster, to avoid completely hitting a rock bottom place. We can we can train ourselves in how to respond to the setbacks that we face. We're never, ever going to live a life without setbacks or without challenges. And if we are living a life without any of those things, we're probably not doing much.
And things get boring when there's no struggle. I know it's hard. It's hard to accept that. But if everything's perfect, life probably gets very boring. I mean, if you watch a sports game and the one team is not struggling at all and they're just scoring like crazy, it's a boring game to watch. Even though the team winning, 75-0, it's just not fun.
Yeah, I agree.
So one of the things that you've kind of have to overcome in dealing with this is to get out of your own way.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get out of your own way?
So I think the first step in getting out of your own way is always going to be self-awareness. Having that awareness of what your patterns are, because you can't change, and it comes back to the belief systems I talked about at the beginning that drive your behavior. If you're not aware of what those belief systems are that drive your behavior, then you can't fix it. You can't change it. So I think it starts with a self-awareness and taking full responsibility. I always tell my clients, it's time to take responsibility for everything that's happened to you in your life. Now, I would never blame an abuse victim for the abuse that's happened to them. I was abused as a child, but I do know that we choose how we respond to it. For a really long time, I walked around with a chip on my shoulder and I said, well, you don't know what's happened to me. And I chose to respond to what happened to me in a negative light. Then I decided one day that I didn't want to carry around that toxicity anymore. It was tiring. It was heavy. The moment I put it down and decided to take the lessons that abuse was meant to teach me so that I can go forward and help other people was when my life totally changed. Self-awareness and realizing that everything that's happened to you in your life, the common denominator is you.
And life is happening for you, not to you. So you have to find essentially the silver lining in the clouds and the opportunity that's there. There's a lesson to be learned. We may not appreciate what's going on and we may not like it, and bad things do happen. But within all of that, we have a choice of how we're going to react to that situation and what we're going to do about it. And that is within ourselves.
Yes. And ultimately, pain has always been the biggest catalyst for change. Most people do not make a change until they have hit a point where they cannot bear the pain anymore. And that's when they decide that something needs to change in their life. The pain exists to tell us that something is not working and we need to change.
And that's a shame that we have to wait till we have pain to make a change. It's a lot better to make a change because you know what? You can. And if you want a better life, don't wait for a pain point to begin. Just begin. There's no reason you can't.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot easier to do, and you go through a lot less struggle than waiting for that rock bottom moment. And unfortunately, that's the way people are wired. I don't know why, but it is.
Yeah, I think it comes back to our primal wiring that's kind of gotten the species to evolve to the point that it's at, where if change is outside of our comfort zone. So whenever we step outside of our comfort zone, the fear center in our brain kicks in and says, wait, what's going on? Like, I don't know if there's something around this corner that can kill us, so we should just go back. And so that's why I see people often giving into temptation and going back to the diet that they had before, going back to the sedentary lifestyle, going back to the corporate job that they didn't enjoy, going back to the abusive or toxic relationship that they were in, because ultimately the known devil is less scary than the unknown.
And that is true. You just have to overcome your fears. And it's not easy, but that's why it's nice to have a coach or a mastermind group, you've got people who will support you through the fear and help you through the issues that you have to deal with. And it's always nice to have a team around you propelling you forward, who's on your side and cheering you on.
Yeah, I mean, it always feels safer to walk down a dark alley with a group of people than it does alone. So, and that's where the coach and the mastermind come in, is that you know that they have your back. You know that they're walking that journey beside you and they're supporting you the whole way.
Absolutely. Are there any topics that we should have covered today that we have not had a chance to cover?
Nothing that I can think of.
We always ask, what's an action step that people can take based on our conversation this week to move forward with their lives?
Great question. I would say the biggest action step that I can give people if they want to start seeing change in their life would be to start paying attention to the words that they use and start being aware. Are they focusing on what they don't want? Are they focusing on that negative? Or do they tend to focus on the positive and what they do want? Because ultimately it's your language and what you focus on that creates your reality.
It does. And I've really come to understand how important language is and the words that we use and how they affect our behavior and our outcomes. And when you change your language and you change the words you use and you watch what you say, and you're intentional with that, it really does change your trajectory and your path, and it makes it a lot better.
Yeah. And it happens very quickly, too.
And that's awesome. The faster, the better.
That's right.
If people would like to learn more about you, connect, where's the best place for them to find you?
So if they go to my website, bluelotusmind.com, so blue like the color, lotus like the flower, and mind like your brain, they'll be able to connect to all my social media from there. I am on Facebook at facebook.com/bluelotusmind and on Instagram at Tiffany Toombs.
And I will put all of those links in the show notes so they'll be easy for everyone to find.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It was an awesome conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed the conversation with Tiffany today. Everyone has their own path, but the principles are the same. Health, wealth, managing your time, spirituality, knowing your purpose, having the right mindsets. Today we see how Tiffany puts all those together for her life. So many people get stuck in good enough, and it keeps them from great. But it really sucks to have to go through the pain to propel you forward. And that's a struggle we all face. You have a choice. You can wait for the pain, or you can just start and go now. Did you hear how Tiffany lifts heavy weights? I do too. It's the foundation for building a strong body. Many people think that lifting free weights will make you look very muscular and kind of weird. It's not true. It's not that simple, but it will make you strong, and I encourage you to do it. This week's action step: start paying attention to the words you use. You can also watch the words of other people around you. Start to see how they view the world. Your view sets your direction, and we may unconsciously self-sabotage ourselves with our language. We all have a choice in how we view the world and the words that we put out to the world and also to ourselves. Hey, if you're still listening, you must have liked this episode. So please share it with a few friends. I would appreciate that. What's preventing you from moving forward, and who are you putting on your team to build the life you deserve? Taking no action creates a far worse outcome in life than trying something and failing. You can always get me at rocky@richyoursoul.com. I'd love to hear how you're doing and how the information I've shared has helped you. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.